Now we're left with two guys that are left, Tucker Carlson, and I'm going to say the word or the name, Nick Fuentes. Tucker Carlson, I think, has a shot at actually meaning it. And so I'm not sure that I agree with you.
You and I have had a private conversation about this many years ago, and I think I've been vindicated on this.
I think I've been vindicated on it, but we can have that conversation in a minute. So to now go to, we'll come back to Tucker. You go to Fuentes, and so he seemed to be a classic guy who's, to be fair to him, not hiding his nationalism, right? So he was like, I'm going nationalist, I'm going Christian nationalist, white nationalist. It appeared to me, right? That was my original read of him. But now he's also changing. And so now I know we all cancel him to bejesus. And
I mean,
okay, Barry Weiss, if you're watching, which you obviously are,
Holocaust denier.
Right. So no problem. You deny the Holocaust, you say all these things. He's against race mixing. Well, yeah. I'm married to an Asian woman. What am I going to agree with that? Right. So obviously we're against all that. But even now he has realized that's not actually where his audience is. So whether it's crazy.
Can you pause that? Yeah. I mean, he's literally saying Nick Fuentes is changing. Like I have yet to see Nick Fuentes admit he was wrong about Hitler or denounce Nazism. The vanguard will be there, sir. Yeah, let's talk a little bit about the Thanksgiving feast, the annual roast of the turkey that is Cenk Uygur at the hands of his nephew, Hasan Piker. They get together every year on Thanksgiving for Cenksgiving. It's always a fun event. And this year, Cenk decided to kick things off with a pretty interesting way to describe his own. Oh, where is it?
Right there.
Oh, yeah. A pretty interesting way to describe his nephew here. I'll put this up on screen. Cenk said, going to my communist nephew's house later for #Cenksgiving. Now also part of America. Almost even Americana now. God bless freedom of speech. Love living in a free country where we're allowed to think and argue whatever we want. So, I mean, that's some pretty, bland platitudes or cliches or whatever you want. God bless freedom and love living in a free country, even though we arguably don't right now.
It's such canned textbook. This is my uncle that I only see at Thanksgiving talk. Like, I love you, nephew, and even though I'm coming over to your house and I'm eating your Thanksgiving at your table, but he's a communist, but that's America. I love my communist nephew, even though he's crazy, right? I didn't see this one.
Yeah, so pretty funny. I mean, I know that Cenk is just being a little bit like, I think he's being a little bit jokey here. I don't. And at one point, Hasan even asked him about that. He's like, "Do you think I'm a communist?" And Cenk was like, "Well, you tell me. You just got back from China. You seemed real excited about
that was so
China," which is kind of funny. It is what it is. They're obviously, they have a little bit of that rapport. And I will say, despite the fact that I do think Cenk got, cooked and roasted and carved up, this was not nearly as intense of a Cenksgiving as previous years. I think specifically last year just went absolutely ape shit. It was crazy. I mean, that was like literally a month before Donald Trump's reelection. So I think everyone was feeling,
a month
tense.
after.
Sorry, it was a month after?
Well, yeah, because the Thanksgiving comes after the
election.
election.
You're right. I guess you're right. Yeah. So either way, things were, it seemed like the stakes were really high. Everything, it was really dramatic time to be debating politics, obviously.
Cenk had just gone on this big tour where he was like, I never called Donald Trump a Nazi and I don't think he's a fascist and I want to work with Republicans. It was crazy, right? Because right before the election, he goes over to England and he does the trigonometry pod where he debates them that Donald Trump is a fascist. Donald Trump wins the election. He immediately drops that talking point like a hat and goes on to say, I never called Donald Trump fascist. I wasn't one of those crazy lefties that says you can't work with Donald Trump. And I think that really rubbed Hasan the wrong way.
Oh, yeah, 100%. And as people are saying in chat, Cenk was straight up disrespectful last year. Not that I'm like pearl clutching about it, but it was just a straight up disrespectful way to address really anyone, let alone your fucking family member. Zac and I have never even addressed each other in that sort of a tone with that level of like aggression and just like shouting at each other and all that insanity. So it was really crazy. It made for a fun watch. I'm not going to lie. It made for a cringy but fun watch. It was great to react to. This year was a little bit more tame. Maybe, Zac, because of the fact that, so many of Cenk's predictions from a year ago have all fallen flat. So much of what he was saying has kind of aged like milk. So maybe he's just like he feels a little bit put in his place, and he's like, all right, I can't come out quite so spicy this time. That's the only theory I have. Maybe they were just, maybe he was just in a better mood. Who knows?
I mean, I don't know how you feel
Here's
about
how we
it
do it.
these
Step
days.
1, throw Ezra Klein in prison. Okay. Step 2, question mark. Step 3, decommodified housing. I'm joking. Ezra Klein, if you see this, is a joke. Okay.
Okay. So
I think you are fine.
okay, but now like the way more controversial thing is these days, I think we should unite with the right to defeat the establishment. So because we can't defeat them on our own. And if we unite, we can actually win on Israel. We just kind of won on Epstein files. And we could even win on paid family leave. We might even be able to win on healthcare, because to your point and to my point, West Virginia and Kentucky, they want healthcare, right? They don't want money in politics. They actually agree with us on almost everything.
So it's a bizarre proposal for Cenk to say, to get what we need to unite with the right. We need to unite with the right. Oh, that's how we pass our proposals, not by defeating the right, but by like uniting with them, which is just weird, because it wasn't that long ago that Cenk was screaming at the top of his lungs and pulling his fucking hair out of his head because of the fact that Kamala Harris wouldn't stop trotting around Liz Cheney and touting the endorsement of Dick Cheney and doing literally that, uniting with the right. So again, I know that Cenk's not referring to the right wingers like Liz Cheney and Dick Cheney, but it just seems like weird advice. Like, oh, not those right wingers, these right wingers that I like and that come on the Young Turks. Like these are the right wingers that you should unite with. But every time the Democrats actually unite with right wingers or try to, I decry it at the top of my lungs and say that it's the dumbest thing ever and the reason why they lose. So it's just a bizarre talking point. And ultimately, I would say that, to get the issues passed that we need to get passed, to get the proposals passed that we need passed, we need to defeat the right wing. We don't need to, sing Kumbaya.
Yeah, I think it's a misunderstanding of the data that he's reading, right? So I think when Cenk says we need to unite with the right, and this is being way too charitable for Cenk, because I think what he really means is, hey, right wingers, please watch my YouTube channel, right? But when people who are of good faith and they really mean it, they say, oh, we need to unite with the right. I think what they're suggesting is like understanding that in order to win, we need to poach voters away from the Republican Party. And I would say to them, by doing that is how you defeat the Republican Party, right? Our ideas are already winning, right? The Data for Progress poll that just came out said not only do 78 out of every 14 so that's not the way it is. It's 63%. It said 78 over 14, which is a weird way of doing this, but which it comes out to 63% of the Democratic Party supports Medicare for all. And this is a really weird graph, so I'm going to show everybody just so you guys can see what I'm looking at, right? But what we see is
I think there's averaging all those numbers together, right? For the Democrat, Republican, and Independent.
Oh, I see.
To say this, to get the 63 and then the 29 is disapprove.
Yeah. Oh, okay. 78% approve, 14% disapprove. Okay. That was throwing me for a loop because I was like, that's not a percentage. 78 over 14 is not a percentage. That's a whole number. Anyway, what you're seeing is across all political parties in America, things like Medicare for all are popular. There's no uniting with the right wing in America to pass Medicare for all. There's only defeating the right wing in America by poaching all of their voters and saying that the left is going to deliver Medicare for all, which you want.
Anti-war, anti-corruption.
I don't disagree with you. I think the major disagreement that you and I have to a certain degree is, and I see this all the time, that, you need people. If you want to unite the people, you're going to have people you disagree with in your movement, no matter what happens. The point is, you don't actually go to their side on, social issues or whatever, these things that are wedge issues that are used as a distraction to make it seem as though the uniparty consensus is actually not there on the issues that matter the most to every single person, healthcare, housing, and the like, and foreign policy. But to make them come to your side because you are offering them something, right? Offering them free healthcare, offering them housing. And that's how you bring them to your side. I don't have a disagreement there. I'm not saying like we just cut out, whoever has voted for Donald Trump and shoot ourselves in the foot regardless.
Yeah.
My point is always that we bring them to our side without having to concede on these other things. Like we don't concede on being unnecessarily cruel to undocumented migrants or being unnecessarily cruel to trans people and constantly talking about trans people this, trans people that. We just call it as it is. This is just a distraction. And I think the Trump administration's failures on affordability after winning the election against an administration that came across as old and unable to solve the 1.5 years of negative real wage growth that people experienced under the Biden administration and the inflation crisis that people were experiencing, and then hyper focusing, which is what the Trump administration did, hyper focusing on trans issues and things like that, actually present a unique opportunity to show people like, oh, guess what? Turns out it wasn't trans people that was making your rent more expensive. Turns out it wasn't a Guatemalan migrant that was the reason for why your healthcare is expensive. And that's what I try to do all the time.
So look, maybe it's an issue of timing, but first off, on should they come to us or should we go to them? It's kind of a false framing because since we agree on 70% of issues, neither side actually has to go anywhere. But if you're talking about traditional left-wing policies.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think it's also odd because he says the left and right don't have to go anywhere because we already agree on 75%. The left, us, the Democrats, we do need the right to come somewhere. We need them to come over here when it comes to election day, right? For all the reasons Hasan just laid out before Cenk apparently tuned it all out and started talking and going right back to his script was people didn't trust the Democrats to deliver on those promises that were kitchen table promises. They didn't trust Joe Biden to do it, and they didn't trust Kamala Harris to do it. And for some fucking reason, they trusted Donald Trump to do it, right? So the thing that needs to change is that we need to make sure that the voters, the American electorate, believe that the Democrats are going to do that because they keep falling for a charlatan. They keep falling for a con man that's going to dupe them, like Lucy setting up the football and waiting for Charlie Brown to come kick it. That was the American people with Donald Trump. So something does need to change. We need to do a better job of convincing people to come onto our side. And Donald Trump is giving us a lot of help because he's absolutely shitting the bed as president. He's not doing any of the things that he promised he would. And oftentimes once he gets into power, at least in his first term, and again, so far in his second term, people have realized, hey, wait, he's actually not that good at governing. He's not that interested in governing. He's sure as shit not going to bring grocery prices down or any jobs back to America. So we need to focus on poaching all those people who voted on him under that lie, under the illusion he was going to do those things, and be like, no, we are actually going to make your job security more stable. We're going to make sure that you get a raise. We're going to make sure that your housing is more affordable. And then people will come over and vote for the left because they didn't just a year ago.
Yep, 100%. Partially because of the fact that Donald Trump appropriated a lot of left-wing talking points, such as being anti-war. And I guess that's the most frustrating aspect of Cenk's analysis to me. It's like, where's his analysis as to the fact that most of these right-wingers are just appropriating our talking points or policy suggestions because they know, in fact, it is popular. Trump did this over and over again. In fact, at one point in his first campaign, he literally said, maybe we should do Medicare for all. Maybe we should do universal health care. But a responsible analyst, a responsible progressive journalist would point to that and say, don't fall for it. This is a lie. Donald Trump is telling you what you want to hear. That's what politicians do best. That's what they're most infamous for. It's one thing if a politician actually comes to us and delivers a tangible win. Obviously, I'll give Rand Paul credit when he co-sponsors a bill with Ro Khanna or something. But no, I'm not going to sit here and applaud when Donald Trump, quote unquote, comes to us by promising us bullshit and appropriating our slogans, policies, and talking points to get more power. You know what I'm saying? Because that's what fucking happens over and over again. And now a lot of Republicans are learning from Donald Trump. They're seeing what he did successfully by appropriating populist rhetoric, by appropriating some popular left-wing ideas without any actual intention of delivering. Like I said, Trump pretended to be anti-war. His supporters hyped him up as being anti-war. Even Cenk Uygur helped play into that. Is the guy anti-war? No, he's a fucking disaster.
Yep. That's why you have guys like Tucker Carlson who spent 20 years pushing a neocon agenda, and yet they're the only ones out here saying the correct thing on Israel. Why? Because they know it's popular. And to your point about Donald Trump being the most hawkish president of our lifetime, the dude just said, I'm canceling any travel over the airspace of Venezuela, which is a country that we have no say over their fucking airspace. I mean, it's absolutely nutso. So to still feed into this argument that he's somehow anti-war is crazy.
Yeah, and speaking of Tucker Carlson, you're going to hear a little bit more about him in a second. So get ready for that.
It's an issue of timing. But first off, on should they come to us or should we go to them? It's kind of a false framing because since we agree on 70% of issues, neither side actually has to go anywhere. But if you're talking about traditional left-wing policies, that's literally what I've been doing the last 2 years. I've been saying yes to the right wing who are coming to our traditional policies, right? So you're anti-war, that's traditionally left-wing, right? You're anti-corruption, that's traditionally left-wing. You're for paid family leave because you want more babies and you want, et cetera, right? We want to treat American moms that are great. That's traditionally left-wing. You want lower drug prices.
And again, in theory, this sounds fine. And when it comes to actual politics, yeah, I like I said, I have no problem giving credit to Rand Paul or, you know, whatever the fuck, when Marjorie Taylor Greene on the Epstein thing, or a few other examples of right wingers doing the right thing.
Thomas Massey.
I even give credit to Josh Hawley the other day for actually, you know, talking about AI in a way that I wish progressives would more. So it's not like I'm against giving credit where it's due when we're talking about actual politicians who have actual power. But what this theory looks like in practice in Cenk Uygur world is basically fraternizing with, you know, disgusting fascist commentators, people like Charlie Kirk, people like Glenn Beck, people like Patrick Bet-David, all of these villains, fraternizing with them and sanitizing their image to his, at one point, progressive audience in an attempt to poach their viewers by pandering to the right wing, not working with them, not changing their minds, but pandering to them. And that's the issue I have with Cenk's approach, because again, there's a version of it that's serious. We see it happening in the Senate sometimes. We see it happening in the Congress sometimes. But Cenk is not a senator. He's pandering to his fellow commentators who happen to be a member of the fascist party and who happen to preach a fascist gospel for their fucking living to their audience, poisoning the brains of Americans. And instead of actually taking those people on, instead of actually debating them and destroying their ideas like Cenk Uygur at one point did, now he panders to them. Now he fraternizes with them and, you know, famously drinks beer with them in a friendly way. And again, I'm not just talking about Dave Smith. No, I'm literally talking about Glenn Beck. I'm literally talking about Patrick Bet-David and Charlie Kirk before he, you know, died. One of Cenk's final acts, or, you know, while Charlie was alive, was whitewashing his image, sanitizing his image, acting like he's an ally of ours, not an opponent, which any reasonable, responsible progressive journalist would immediately identify Charlie Kirk as an enemy, an opponent, not an ally. So I think, again, in theory, there is a way that this can work, but when it comes to, you know, actually seeing it in practice, at least when Cenk Uygur does it, it is pandering. It's not a serious collaboration in any way.
And when you look at his motivations for it on a financial level, it all starts to really clear itself up, right? We've talked about it a lot. Just a fact of life, a reality is, for a number of reasons, people who want to get their news on the internet from anti-establishment, non-corporate news affiliated voices are typically right wing. You combine that with the fact that we were entering an era that Cenk was a little behind on, but he did sense, oh, there's going to be renewed interest in Donald Trump in the right wing. And his longtime co-host had pissed off every single progressive in his audience. So he's thinking, okay, I am going to try and do the Dave Rubin. I'm going to try and do the Jimmy Dore. I am going to try and position myself as a left-wing guy who is very, very open to the right wing, who is very interested in ingratiating myself to a right-wing audience. And they may still think of me as like, oh, that guy's nominally on the left. But since he validates all of my perspective, since he, you know, doubles down on my worldview and agrees with me on that, I can trust him because he's not actually converting me to the left. He's further entrenching me in my right-wing views because I think somebody even across the aisle believes the same way I do.
Higher wages, all traditionally left-wing, and I'm super happy to take their alliance in it, right? And what I'm saying is, okay, we just leave out the social issues in terms of our debate when we're working together, right? So we want to work together on banning private equity from buying up our residential real estate, or we want to work on anti-corruption. Okay, we'll argue about the social issues later, and there's nothing wrong with arguing about it, and neither side has to concede at all. So they could be like, okay, I'm massively anti-trans, and we could be massively pro-trans, or fill in the blank, Muslim, whatever the category is, right? But if we let that stop us in the beginning, we're never going to topple the establishment. And the establishment is a bigger enemy to both us and them than we are to each other.
So here's
what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. But here's the problem. Josh Hawley is a great example of this, right? Like, I think or Tucker Carlson is a great example of this. I think there are a lot of people who understand that left populism, real populist economic policies, are actually extremely popular amongst the base, right? Across the board, regardless of whatever ideology they slot themselves into, most people find themselves in agreement with these policies. And the problem for them is that they have a higher priority for either the nationalist sentiment, and that's actually the goal that they're advancing, or the goal that they're working towards, which is, I think, in Tucker Carlson's case, that's the point, or they're just lying, but they recognize the popularity of these left populist policies, and they're trying to maintain a base of support. But when push comes to shove, just like with Josh Hawley, they will still be servants of capital. And that's the issue that I have with a lot of the right. And I think that's the issue that a lot of people have with the self-described right-wingers. Maybe not the right-wing voters in general, because those people can be convinced and move. But most people in positions of power within the right-wing machine are either lying about being in favor of populism, or they care infinitely more about like implementing some kind of insane nationalistic policies.
All right, so let's say 5 different Republicans or right-wingers and give, and I think that'll help clarify the conversation. First of all, I agree with you, and that's the main point I make, is to make a differentiation between the leaders and the voters, okay? So attack the leaders, politicians, media, no problem, right? That's the game we're in. Don't attack the voters. They actually agree with us on 70% of stuff. Take it.
I hear where he's coming from, and I understand why people think that, but I also don't think it really fucking matters, because Donald Trump attacks the voters all the fucking time and they reelected him.
Yeah, 100%. It's a bizarre logic for Cenk to be arriving at this point in time. Again, after everything we've seen with not one, but now, like, part of a second Trump administration, it just seems like this theory doesn't work. And again, like I keep saying, I'm more than willing to, commend Ro Khanna for working with Thomas Massie or whatever. But to act like Thomas Massie is this populist hero, the guy wants to freaking completely gut the social safety net. He doesn't think that any taxpayer money should go towards helping the poor, to providing, the social benefits to people that really need them. So I guess you can call him a populist because he doesn't take corporate money and agrees with us on Israel. That's nice. But again, to say that that's an ally, no. We need to defeat his ideology. We need to defeat the corporate libertarian ideology at all costs. And again, it's fine if fucking Ro Khanna wants to work with the dude every once in a while, or with Marjorie Taylor Greene. But let's not forget who these people actually are and which side of the fucking aisle they're on.
Completely agree. And just to supplement that point, here is a literal video. It's recent. I don't want to hear any bullshit about how this is so far long ago. Tucker Carlson continues to advocate for feudalism. Quote, "I do really prefer the feudal model. It's the model of all time." In August, he said feudalism is so much better than what we have now. At least the leader is invested in his people's prosperity. So these people are just ripping the fucking mask off, right? They don't care about democracy. They care about feudalism. All right, what does Tucker Carlson want? He wants a monopoly of the rich running everything. All right, he wants to live in a fiefdom and be a lord that is considered nobility based off of his wealth. We've talked about how it's very, very strange that it doesn't get even more press, but he hangs out at this weird fucking racist former cotillion spot in Florida where all the staff is black and all of the members are white, and even Dave Rubin said it was cringy and racist. These are not allies. These are not people who are real, true populists in any meaningful sense of the word. Somebody who's saying that the feudal model is the model of all time is somebody who does not believe in democracy and is not on the same political mission that we're on at all, full stop.
Yeah, and I'm of the belief that Tucker Carlson wants serious power, that he does have intentions of running for president. And again, to be sanitizing his image and acting like he's some sort of ally of progressives and of the left and not an opponent, an enemy that needs to be defeated, and a charlatan fraudster like Donald Trump, in the same tradition of Donald Trump. That's the analysis that we need from Cenk Uygur. Not, oh, isn't it so exciting that Tucker Carlson is now out here appropriating our message and lying to his audience, tricking them like a Pied Piper? Again, in the same exact way that Donald Trump did. We just lived through this. We just elected this fucking fascist, phony, populist con man. And now Cenk is telling us that we should do it again, just under a different name. Oh, now it's Tucker Carlson. Now it's Marjorie Taylor Greene and it's going to be different. No, it's fucking not. It's not going to be different. It's not going to be different at all. They're wolves in sheep's clothing. And again, we can give them credit where credit is due, and in small instances, in the same way that I'll give Trump credit where credit is due. I thought it was good that he signed the First Step Act back in the day. That doesn't mean he's a real fucking populist. Again, almost every politician, you can find some instance in which you give them credit. That doesn't mean they've come to our side. Doesn't mean they're a fucking ally. And this is just such lazy analysis, which seems really, born out of a place of wanting to poach those, those audience members from the right wing, which does have a larger audience than left-wing media.
That's 100% nail on the head. And yeah, to supplement your point, you were even telling me the other day that Ronald Reagan was decent on denuclearization towards the end of his presidency. So even the literal worst presidents of all time, George W. Bush, he was a decent painter. There are some nice things you can say. He's a charismatic guy, gave a firm handshake,
Yeah, I don't know if I'd call George Bush a good painter. His paintings are pretty bad. But
anyway,
let's keep going. This is somehow going to get way crazier in a second here.
Guess for an answer. Okay. So now when you get to the five guys, so we all agree on a bunch of them. Democrat, uniparty, corporate Republican. But really, what's the difference? So we hate them. The right wing hates, right wing base hates them. So we're past that. And that used to be our number one impediment. Then you get to Steve Bannon. Steve Bannon pretends to be the biggest populist on the right wing, like the godfather of populism in a lot of ways on the right wing. But I'm worried that he's utterly full of shit, right? So here he is behind the scenes working with Epstein, doing a fake wall, constantly scheming for power and more power. But wait a minute, I thought you were against the elites. And at every turn, it seems like behind the scenes, you're actually helping the elites.
Hasan,
and you're using populism as a way to get popular to do your actual agenda. So I'm super worried about Steve Bannon, right? Now you move to Josh Hawley. Josh Hawley's got his foot in in Mitch McConnell's camp, and he's got his foot in populism. He did actually stop taking corporate PAC money, so he's not 100% full of shit like the other guys, like Ted Cruz, etc. Right? So he's only 50% full of shit now. So that's an improvement, but at the end of the day, he's too attached to the old system. So he's going to side with the McConnells of the world, is my guess. So not that useful, right? So now we're left with two guys that are left, Tucker Carlson, and I'm going to say the word or the name, Nick Fuentes. Okay.
Yeah, no, it's I have stopped censoring that Nick Fuentes mentioned since he's getting fucking profiled by the New York Times.
Yeah. So.
But what I'm really interested in is your opinion on Cenk's commentary here, because we're about to hear some insane apologia for Nick Fuentes, who is a literal Nazi. As much of a Nazi as anyone on planet Earth is a Nazi. Nick Fuentes is a Nazi, the literal definition of a modern day Nazi, a neo-Nazi. Nick Fuentes, that's the guy. But listen to the way Cenk is about to describe this person and the role that he plays in our society.
Now we're left with two guys that are left, Tucker Carlson, and I'm going to say the word or the name, Nick Fuentes. Okay.
Yeah, no, it's I have stopped censoring that Nick Fuentes mentioned since he's getting fucking profiled by the New York Times.
Yeah. So Tucker Carlson, I think, has a shot at actually meaning it. And so I'm not sure that I agree with you.
You and I have had a private conversation about this many years ago, and I think I've been vindicated on this.
I think I've been vindicated on it, but we can have that conversation in a minute. So to now you go to, we'll come back to Tucker. You go to Fuentes. And so he seemed to be a classic guy who's, to be fair to him, not hiding his nationalism, right? So he was like, I'm going nationalist. I'm going Christian nationalist, white nationalist. It appeared to me, right? That was my original read of him. But now he's also changing. And so now I know we all cancel him to bejesus. And
I mean,
okay, Barry Weiss, if you're watching, which you obviously are,
Holocaust
right?
denier.
Right. So no problem. You deny the Holocaust. You say all these things. He's against race mixing. Well, yeah. I'm married to an Asian woman. What am I going to agree with that? Right. So obviously we're against all that. But even now he has realized that's not actually where his audience is. So whether it's crazy.
Can you pause that?
Yeah, I mean, he's literally saying Nick Fuentes is changing. Like, I have yet to see Nick Fuentes admit he was wrong about Hitler or denounce Nazism, to say that he was wrong about the Jews, to say that he was wrong about black people being less intelligent than white people, to say that he was wrong about, you know, women and how they should just shut up. And a whole laundry list of just horrible, objectionable poison that he's injected right into the vein of society. I have yet to see him denounce any of that, to backtrack on any of it. I haven't seen him change one bit. He's just gotten more popular. He's just gotten more mainstream. He's just become more normalized, along with his hideous, again, poisonous, bigoted talking points, which you see regurgitated and repeated. But the only change is that he's been accepted by cowards like Tucker Carlson and total fucking cucks like Dave Smith, who himself is Jewish. And you're gonna sanitize this fucking Nazi? You're gonna invite him on to your platform and let your audience cheer him on? It's the most disgusting thing I've ever fucking seen. And for now, Cenk Uygur to be contributing to that, saying that he's changed, you know, basically defending Nick Fuentes and saying that he's one of the better right-wing commentators, unlike Steve Bannon. You know, Nick Fuentes is someone that we can trust. What the fuck analysis is this?
Yeah, that's honestly stomach churning level of analysis. And the other thing he throws out there is he says he realizes that's not where his audience is. We have actually covered Nick Fuentes for a while, right? We were not the size of a show that was ever going to amplify him. We put the coverage on our Clips channel, but we did, you know, talk about him a lot. We have chronicled this man's rise from when he was just hanging out with Kanye, and even before then when he was just a little shithead kid making Facebook content. Gavin and I have watched this dude's rise. And the thing that's happened that's been so alarming to me is his audience is actually more unhinged, I think, than he is. Like, they've just been trained to want somebody who's going to dial it up more and more and more. So much so, you watch this dude start bitching about how his audience just wants him to scream slurs all night because they're not actually interested in his weird anti-Semitic conspiracy theories. They just want him to say a bunch of slurs, a bunch of words that, oh, Real Public says you're not allowed to do it. And now Tucker Carlson's trying to do it. Gavin sent me a clip the other day where Tucker Carlson is like, F slur, F slur, F slur, F slur, F slur, just for attention, just to be like, I'll do it, just to be like that kid in 3rd grade that says fuck, 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 because everybody's like, wow, I can't believe that kid said a bad word, except it's a grown adult man being a hateful bigot, right? The only thing that Nick Fuentes has realized is that his audience is so crazy, he doesn't even fuck with them, Cenk. That's what's the problem. He's created its own beast, so it's not even about Nick Fuentes anymore. It's this massive sprawl of incels and groypers that he's created. And as you and the New York Times and Tucker Carlson try and whitewash and sanitize his image and act like, oh, he's grown up, all it does is create, one, a normalization of his abhorrent views, and create a space for somebody to go out there and be like, I'm even more extreme than Nick Fuentes, and get his groypers all riled up. We put out content all the time that's like rage bait for groypers, right? Where I'll put it up on the Casa del Vanguard and we'll just get hundreds of unhinged comments from white supremacists blaming shit on the Jews, being like, you guys must be Jews, you guys must be fucking Jews. They'll say that shit all the time. That's his audience. What do you mean that they're reeling him in, that they're somehow more reasonable than him and he has to like button up in mainstream? He wants to make money. That's the only reason you've ever seen him button himself up.
Yup, 100%. So we can have access to scams like Manect, where you can also find Anna Kasparian alongside Nick Fuentes. So yeah, pretty crazy shit. I honestly genuinely can't believe this commentary is coming out of Cenk's mouth. It just makes no sense for him to be like, oh yeah, we can't trust Steve Bannon because he's fraternizing with elites or whatever, but Tucker Carlson isn't, Nick Fuentes isn't. Again, who do you think is chatting with Nick Fuentes on Manect for $500 a minute? It's not normal fucking people, bro. It's not, yeah, it's elites. What the fuck do you think is going on here?
Yeah.
I think I've been on it, but we can have that conversation in a minute. So to now go to, we'll come back to Tucker. You go to Fuentes. And so he seemed to be a classic guy who's, to be fair to him, not hiding his nationalism, right? So he was like, I'm going nationalist, I'm going Christian nationalist, white nationalist. It appeared to me, right? That was my original read of him. But now he's also changing. And so now I know we all cancel him to bejesus. And
I mean,
okay, Barry Weiss, if you're watching, which you obviously are,
Holocaust
right?
denier.
Right. So no problem. You deny the Holocaust, you say all these things. He's against race mixing. Well, yeah. I'm married to an Asian woman. What am I going to agree with that? Right. So obviously we're against all that. But even now he has realized that's not actually where his audience is. He's so whether it's
I think
Craven,
he's a grifter. I think these guys are all grifters.
right? Whether it's Craven or not, whether they're grifters or not, even Fuentes is now saying, he said it just like 2 days ago, you know what? Maybe we put aside the racism and the cruelty and the abuse, right? Which is an amazing admission, by the way, that kind of is the direction they were going, right? And he says maybe we put that aside.
I just don't
to be able to unite with the left.
I don't
so
believe
I'm
any
not
of these
saying
guys.
yes to Fuentes. I'm just saying look at the tide moving. The tide is moving towards populism because it's being driven by the audience. The audience wants real populism. So when they say bullshit, they don't want it, and they're pushing in a better direction. So why is Tucker, now let's go to the heart of it, Tucker, right? Why is Tucker to me today different than he was on Fox News? Because on Fox News, he worked for corporate media, and he says it now himself. He says, yeah, I mean, there were certain things we were allowed to say, not allowed to say. I regret a lot of the things that I said on there. So now he's more tethered to the audience than he is to Rupert Murdoch. And so he tries to serve his audience better. And now he says wrong about Iraq, right? Wrong about war overall, wrong about a bunch of things,
it's
right?
insane. Like just insane whitewashing of Tucker Carlson, Cenk acting. Oh, now that he's, not working for Fox News, he's accountable to his audience. He's a real populist, which is why he went and did a propaganda video for Vladimir Putin showing off how cheap the groceries are in Moscow. Like that's who Tucker Carlson is. That's what he's like evolved into post Fox News. Not some truth teller. Now instead of being a propagandist for George Bush, he's a propagandist for Vladimir Putin. I'm supposed to act like he's a fucking populist and applaud because he made Ted Cruz look stupid, which was pretty epic, by the way. That was a great debate between Tucker and Ted Cruz on the specific issue of Israel, which, again, Tucker was on point when it came to. But let's not forget about, again, like the vast majority of this individual's contribution to society, not just when he was at Fox News, but in the present day. This guy's talking about how, demons assault him in his sleep and, again, does literal propaganda for Vladimir Putin going to Moscow. Like a fucking cartoon character showing off the groceries and in the shelves and say, oh, it's so cheap. It's so beautiful here. There's no homeless people in this train, train fucking station. Yeah. I wish America was more Christian like Russia, and then we'd be nice and clean and we wouldn't have any homeless people. I mean, that's who Tucker Carlson is. To act like he's someone that we can trust is genuinely insane. It's a dereliction of his duty, again, as a so-called progressive.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think that what we're really seeing is just Cenk's own personal admiration for Tucker Carlson's ability to pivot based off of what's popular, what's hot in the news cycle. I mean, Tucker Carlson doesn't believe in anything but remaining popular and keeping his position and status as a focal point of the conservative media environment intact, right? He was happy. He was more than happy to wear a bow tie and go out and spread neoconservative talking points for the entire, first 20 years of his political career in commentary. Of course, now that's no longer popular, and he's savvy enough to understand that. So he's been riding this weird lane where he doesn't go full on, I'm going to support Donald Trump all the time, but he definitely will support Donald Trump enough to get Donald Trump supporters to like him and watch him. And then whenever Donald Trump does something bad, he can be one of those guys that throws stones from the outside. And that's all just him, sticking his finger in the wind and determining where the conservative movement is going, not at all to do with him having any kind of real authentic belief system or changing his own ideology.
Yeah, it's again genuinely insane because again it's so weird how Cenk wants to delineate between like, oh, we can't trust Steve Bannon, but we can trust Tucker Carlson and Nick Fuentes. Like we shouldn't trust any of them. But for every populist talking point that Tucker rattles off, I could show you one from Steve Bannon. Again, what's this delineation? Why are we saying that Tucker should be trusted? It's just so fucking weird. And honestly, I do kind of wish that Hasan was challenging Cenk even more aggressively in this specific moment, because it's been a pretty respectful debate. But if I was chatting with someone and they start talking about, Nick Fuentes, he's a different new kind of conservative and he's really been changing. And, Tucker Carlson's really just accountable to his audience these days. That's why he's so based. I'd be like, what the fuck are you talking about? These are two of the most insidious, albeit talented conservative commentators. They are sophisticated. That's what makes it necessary for you to actually accurately analyze their intentions and what's happening here, so that, again, the country doesn't fall for another Pied Piper fascist telling us what we want to hear because like liberals are boring and cringe or whatever. You know what I'm saying? It's just insane that he's willing to lead us off this ledge again, apparently, because these people just appropriated a few of our talking points. It's wild.
Oh yeah, tinfoil hat time. I think this is even further evidence that the Hasan was called off, before the Cenksgiving even started. There was some agreement beforehand that this was going to be a gentleman's discussion and not even a debate. No, we're just going to talk about our ideas like family, because I was reading on the Hasan Piker subreddit for a while and people were saying, oh, this is going to be the first year without a Cenksgiving because on stream Hasan had said Cenk's really busy right now. And he didn't know if they were going to be able to do it. And people were just expecting that, or, reading between the lines that was his polite way of saying, hey, we're not going to do it this year because last year it got so fucking crazy. But I think when they did decide to do it, like, oh, it'll be a good example. Like oftentimes people do have heated debates with their family, but it's still good to, go downstairs and eat Thanksgiving dinner together. I imagine whether it was Hasan's mom, another relative, Cenk, and Hasan being like, hey, next year, let's not go downstairs for Thanksgiving dinner all worked up and pissed off at each other. Let's play it cool. And I think Hasan's just trying to be a good nephew and a family guy and be like, I'll let him get off the hook a little bit.
Yeah, I suppose you're right. And it was still a good discussion. We can watch a little bit more if you want. It's up to you.
Oh, yeah, we can play a little bit more now that I think the internet is more stabilized. Really appreciate everybody bearing with us through the DIY guard today.
Mm-hmm. And by the way, have a lot of us on the left said as much as he has about all the things we're wrong about, right?
No, I don't say that at all.
See? So what my point is, not that he's right and we're wrong or anything along those lines, but he's at least making movements to go towards agreement.
You're saying that there's a broader trend line that's moving in the direction of left politics, and that is the reason why the likes of Tucker Carlson are retriangulating their messaging. That's somewhat understandable, but I do think that ultimately, I don't necessarily care for Tucker Carlson personally or Nick Fuentes, but I do care about changing the mindset of them, because I find socially regressive politics to be a distraction, and that anyone that does that to any degree is inherently reactionary and deliberately doing this because they want to move attention and focus away from the material inequities that they're facing and away from a steadfast approach to dealing with those problems. That is the reason why it's very easy for me to say all right-wingers in general are grifters, and even that moderation that they're engaging with is them simply reading the room and recognizing that they have to offer some kind of what you call populism, some kind of left-wing material solutions.
A spoonful of sugar to help the medicine go down. But I think that's a decent place to wrap this portion of the conversation up from. Hasan, every single person on the Republican right is a grifter, and they cannot be trusted.
Yep, 100%. Again, they're doing what politicians do: tell people what they want to hear, promise them some populist shit with no intention of delivering. Which, by the way, it seems like everyone is able to recognize that when like corporate Democrats do it. Do you guys remember when Kamala Harris was running for president and pretending to be just as progressive as Bernie Sanders? She raised her hand on the debate stage and pretended to also be in favor of Medicare for all. Like literally, this is a trick that has been pulled on the voters so many times, not just by the right, but even by the left. And again, Cenk understands that. He analyzed it accurately at that point. It's not like he said, "Oh, thank God, Kamala Harris is our new ally. Thank fucking God. Maybe she should be Bernie's VP." Like, did you hear that commentary from Cenk when Kamala Harris was appropriating our talking points to accumulate power and trick the voters? No. Again, he accurately analyzed it as a scam, as a fraud. But now when it comes to Tucker Carlson and fucking, Marjorie Taylor Greene or whatever, thank you, Mr. Fascist, for telling me what I want to hear 10% of the time, appropriating our talking points in the process to make yourself more rich and powerful and to ultimately squash our movement, as Donald Trump has attempted to do with the same tactic. Again, by appropriating a lot of populist rhetoric, by talking about free healthcare and ending the wars, and pretending to drain the swamp. Meanwhile, he is the fucking swamp. He's the swamp on steroids. And again, we should accurately call these people out for what they are, which is fraudsters.
Look out the door if you hear an ambulance. The Vanguard will be there, sir. The Vanguard will be there, sir. The Vanguard will be there, sir. The Vanguard will be there.